Greetings everybody, I hope you're all well during this continuing strange time that we are in. And because this lockdown seems to be never ending, we've now started putting these little snippets up on our YouTube. And it's nothing really, I don't really have much to offer, but a few people felt it was helpful and were encouraging about it, so I thought I would continue to do a bit more. And I hope it will just be little reminders for you during this period of time where you're all at home, and little reminders of Dharma. So I'll continue with some of the advice from Padampa Sangye. I feel like I can't go wrong with that. His 100 verses of advice are so to the point and so relevant, never mind where we are or which country you're in, never mind what you're doing, what sort of life you are living, whether you're monastic, whether you are a lay person, whether you're single, whether you're with a family. His advice is universal. So I thought I would just continue with some of those verses, and I hope it will be useful for you. So Padampa Sangye, the great yogi, he continues in his text to give advice to the people of Dengri, near the border, Tibetan-Nepali border, also the area where Milarepa spent a lot of time, and they actually they met, two great yogis who met, and there will be something about their meeting in the future as well. So they are both inspiring teachers, great masters, who even now in this century, their teachings are alive for us, and throughout all these centuries they have been an inspiration. And it is very, very important that we have texts like that and life stories like that we can follow. So before Padampa Sangye died, about a year before he passed away, he gave all this advice to his main students. And so here in this verse, let's read what he says. So he says, "For this life, come what may, you'll have enough to eat and clothe yourself. People of Dengri, put everything you have into practicing the Dharma." So, it doesn't matter when that was taught, right? This century, past centuries, it relates to all of us. Really what it cuts through to is this fact that we tend to spend so much time running in circles, chasing here, chasing there, chasing external things that often end up being a waste of time. That so much of our life is spent running in circles. And when we look back at the end, at the time of death, what have we got to show for it? What have we really got to show for what we have accomplished in our life? That's what we want to think. Say, what have I done in my life? Has it really been beneficial? Have I used my time well? Can I leave without regret? I think that's what he's encouraging us to think. Don't just think about food. Don't just think about nice clothing. Don't just think about material things, making money, getting a nice house, getting good material things, cars, whatever it is people want. Now, of course, we can't do very much shopping, but still there's a lot of shopping online. So shopping is a great addiction in a way. Getting so many things for what? So all we really need is a few things. We can manage with very little. And that means that we have more free time. We have more time for practicing Dharma. Just put everything you have into practicing the Dharma. Make your life meaningful. Be diligent. Think about, what do I really want to achieve in my life? What is really important to me? Now, if material things really are important to you, maybe that's what you should be doing, of course. But then we have to think, how will I feel when it comes to leaving all of that behind? That's, of course, the point of all his teachings, is impermanence. that we can't take any of that with us anyway. Nothing. We can take nothing with us. So he's telling us to focus on what is most important in our life. And then what that means is we have to find out what is most important in my life, personally, my own life. What is truly, truly important to me? We care for our loved ones, we should look after, we should continue to care for our loved ones, family, children. We should continue to do what is right in all of those areas. But not just meaninglessly spend our time and at the end accomplishing nothing. So we need to have a sort of a confidence that we can do something good with our life. That is what a precious human life is. Kind of just in contrast to just any old life, any condition. A precious human life means that we spend it in a meaningful, beneficial way for ourselves and others. So that's what Padamba Sangye is advising all his students, all his future students, all of us today. That's what we should, when he says people of Tingri, we should say, people of Samye Dzong, people of Bermondsey, people of London, people, all human beings, all sentient beings. He's talking to everyone. And say people of 21st century, maybe even now in the West in the 21st century, it especially relates to us here in the West in the 21st century, because that is really what we are doing, focusing so much on materialism and on chasing after material things. So I think it is especially relevant for us. Then he goes on to say, while you are young, people of Dingri, practice hard and with austerities. Once you're old, your constitution won't withstand it. That's also very good practical advice, isn't it? When you're old, your strength goes. You can't do 100,000 prostrations so easily as you could when you're younger. You cannot maybe sit so well anymore in meditation posture. You find it hard to concentrate. You cannot remember very well. I am speaking from experience. Things just go in one ear, out the other. Very hard for anything to stick. Whereas when you're young, you remember so easily. You just have to hear something one time and that's it. When you're young, you're physically well, you're mentally alert, you have a lot of mental and physical energy. So Padamba Sangye is advising all of you who still have strength, advising everyone who still has strength, physical and mental strength, to make use of it in your practice. Don't wait until you get old, because then it's too late. Of course, when one is young, there are so many other things often that one can get distracted with. So he's saying, don't get distracted. Don't get pulled away into things that have no benefit. If you are distracted while you are young and you have a lot of pain, when you get old, then only what we have in the end is regret. So we don't want to end up with having lots of regrets. Then he goes on to say, when emotions arise, bring antidotes to bear on them. People of Dingri, let free all concepts of their very nature. So of course, emotions like negative emotions, anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, arise. We can say, as long as there's strong selfishness, strong clinging, negative outlook gives rise to negative emotions, gives rise to negative actions, gives rise to suffering. So he's advising us here, remember the remedies. apply the remedies while you can. That is Dharma practice. Don't think that Dharma practice is only when you have your session on the meditation cushion, but be aware, be mindful. Don't allow the emotions to take over. Don't fixate on them as well. Don't fixate and make them solid, but instead let them come and go. Just bring antidotes to bear on them and let free all concepts in their very nature. So recognize that they have no solidity. It's our own fixation that is a problem. When we get really, really angry about some issue, we cannot let go of it, we cannot sleep at night because we are thinking about it, or we cannot, focus on anything else except that issue that makes us so annoyed, angry, feel hurt, upset. Then we should, instead of looking at that object, we should look at our own fixation, and we should try to recognize that in that moment there's nothing solid there. It's all just thoughts like clouds in the sky, concepts. Let them free, he's saying. Let all the concepts free in their very nature, just like the wind that blows the clouds away. We know that beyond the clouds there is that limitless space, there's sun. In the same way, if we can allow these concepts to blow away, or we could say the mindfulness is like the wind that dissolves all these clouds or blows all those clouds away, we find that spaciousness in our mind behind the clouds, that spaciousness and the brightness of the sun that was there all along. All we need is awareness and mindfulness. Apply any remedy and antidote that we are familiar with. So if it is anger, we need to apply patience. Or if it is grasping, desire, attachment, maybe we need to apply generosity, clarity and meditation to awareness, to ignorance, and rejoicing to jealousy. Remembering the sameness of all beings, or gratitude to all beings, to overcome pride. So when it says apply the antidotes or bring antidotes to bear, it means just think about what you have learned in the Dharma. There are so many antidotes, there are so many remedies. But if we don't apply them, they won't, never mind how many we know, it won't help us. Even if we just know or remember one thing, if you apply it, that will help, that will be that wind that pushes the clouds away. So application is everything. And here Padamba Sangye goes on to say, think from time to time of all the defects of samsara. People of Tingri, that will make your faith become much clearer. So think about the suffering in samsara. Think about the dissatisfactory nature of all these situations that we have been in from the time we were born until now. We have all been looking for the same thing. We have all been looking for happiness. And until now, we haven't found it. We haven't found a permanent, stable happiness. We've only found dissatisfaction, change, continual disappointments. There's also bright moments, of course, and joy and happiness. But we haven't found true, stable, permanent happiness. So we need to remember that this dissatisfaction of samsara, not because we ought to walk around being miserable. It is not about making ourselves miserable. It is about shifting that focus that we tend to have from searching externally for ways to find happiness, and instead recognizing and keep coming back to this fact that we can only find it internally. We can only find it if we tame our own mind. We can only find it if we manage to tame those negative emotions, and if we manage to tame our selfish attitudes and self-obsession. So looking inwardly to tame our mind, taking refuge, practicing the Dharma. It's a continual message of Padampa. That is how we will find happiness. So the reason we need to look at the defects of samsara is to remind us that if that's where we are looking for the answers, then we won't find them. We won't find them in material things, in external material things. As long as our mind is untamed, never mind how perfect the externals are, we will still find faults in them as well. We will still see faults. We will still be unsatisfied. It's our own dissatisfied mind state that is the issue. Our own inner craving, our own lack of clarity, and our own fixations. Okay, so then Padampa says, right now, develop diligence and stand your ground. People of Dingri, when you die, that will guide you on the path. So sometimes people say, oh, Buddhism is such a sad religion because they're always talking about impermanence and death and dying. But this is just a fact of life, isn't it? Life and death goes together. Anything that is born will die. Everything is impermanent. Everything that comes together will separate. It is not necessarily good or bad. It is not necessarily happy or sad. It's just the state of things. It's the way things are. And it's up to us whether it is happy or sad. It's up to us whether we are happy or sad, because our mind is the source of that happiness and sadness. It is not the external things that is the source of our happiness. So here, what Padampa is saying is that you should stand your ground. You should keep your goal in mind. You should keep your focus. Before we were saying, what is my main priority? That's your goal and your focus. You should stand your ground and focus on that priority. Don't let yourself get pulled away. And be diligent in your application. Be diligent in your Dharma practice. So diligent means be joyfully appreciative of having found the Dharma, of having found methods to true happiness. Not as a belief. It is not some belief that we have and that through that belief we become eternally happy. It is that recognition of and the methods that the Dharma brings us to tame our mind so we can find inner happiness and stability. So here he says, develop diligence, because when you die, that will guide you on the path. It means whatever we've done in this life, that's what will guide us, nothing else. We can take nothing else with us except whatever mental stability we have, or lack of mental stability. If we have no mental stability, we will have fear, anxiety, worry, regrets. If we have done some practice, if we have applied ourselves diligently in this life, we will be able to look back and say, well, at least I did this. At least I found a Dharma. I'm so fortunate. I took refuge. I have practiced. I've done something good in my life. I have tried to focus. Maybe I didn't always manage completely 100% or even 50% sometimes, 80% sometimes, depending. But that is something really positive. Whatever practice we've done, whether we've done mindfulness practice, Shine meditation, Tonglen meditation, Tenrezi practice, the Ngundru, 100,000 prostrations, anything we have done in our life will be something that will truly guide us and help us along the path. at the time of death, during our life, of course, and then at the time of death as well, and onwards into the next life. So for that reason, it's so important. Whatever we have done, even a little bit, we should rejoice in that, and we should recognize the importance of all those bits of practice we have done, like little drops that go into the ocean and never run dry. So then he says, if you are not free now, when will you ever get to be free? People of Dingri, your chance to eat comes only one time in 100. So it's like, if we don't do it now, when will we ever do it? If we don't practice now, when will we do it? If we always put things off, it's never going to happen. Basically, it's the attitude of I will do it tomorrow. I will do it some other time. Right now, I'm distracting myself. Laziness is a kind of distraction, or you could say, distraction is a kind of laziness. So Padamba Sangye is warning us, saying, if we're always running around in circles, looking at all these, chasing at all these external things, and not really applying ourselves to something more beneficial, then that time may never come where we will do it. And he's saying that your chance to eat comes only one time in 100. Your chance to eat, it's like having met the Dharma. The Dharma is like food. The nourishment we get from practicing and studying and contemplating the Dharma is like food. And we only get that when we have a precious human body. And that is something very rare, and it does not come around very often. And if we don't use the opportunities we have, they may not come again. It's a bit like having seeds that we never plant, having seeds lying in the garden shed. And if we don't put them in the ground, eventually they will just go moldy and go rotten from the damp, and they won't grow anymore. It won't be possible for them to grow. So it's a bit like that with our opportunities in life. It's said that if you don't make use of very positive opportunities, they're wasted. It's like you're not planting, you're not sowing, so you don't get anything back. It basically just withers away. It's like that with our life. If we don't use it well, we may not get a precious human birth again. We may not get the opportunity to meet the Dharma again. We may not have the opportunity and the freedom to practice. So that's what he's saying here, that your chance to eat comes only one time in 100. Without the Dharma, how can we nourish ourselves? So you should think about how important the Dharma is to you in your life, and how you really don't want to lose it. I think that's the main message here. And so I hope for all of you who come to Samye Dzong that this is some way for you to keep the connection with the center through these little pieces that we put up on YouTube. And we do have the online teachings, but they are not filmed. So the reason I'm doing this is really for you especially for you who are connected to the center. And I hope you'll find it useful.